and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I'll be discussing the 2014 science fiction action movie Edge of Tomorrow, as directed by Doug Liman and as adapted from the 2004 Japanese light novel All You Need Is Kill by Hiroshi Sakurazaka. Apologies. Anyway, following the collision of an asteroid with Earth, a race of aliens, mimics as they are kind of the name given to them in the movie, have proceeded to invade most of Europe, and the world is throwing everything it has at holding back the inevitable invasion of the rest of the planet. In a last-ditch attempt to gain the upper hand, the United Defence Force, UDF, a global military alliance, sets forth a massive and ambitious plan to invade France, hoping to turn the tables on the enemy. Looking to put a good spin on the invasion, regardless of outcome, General Brigham, as played by Brendan Gleeson, offers Major William Cage, as played by Tom Cruise, basically the mission to document the incursion on the front line. However, Cage is more of a desk jockey than a fighter, being involved in public relations and really having no combat experience, and does everything he can to get out of the mission, ultimately ending with him being press-ganged and stripped of his kind of, his rank, but basically whilst unconscious and kind of busted back down to private, Needless to say, he is pretty useless out on the field and lasts all of about 5 minutes before being blasted across the battlefield. However, and this is where everything takes an interesting turn, Cage suddenly finds himself back awake 24 hours ago, finding that he is then reliving the same day again and again and again. So, what then transpires thereafter is a transformation from being utterly useless to becoming a warrior, a leader, as each day then repeats and Cage becomes more of a soldier each time, led along the way by Sergeant Rita Wachowski, as played by Emily Blunt, who is revered as the Angel of Verdun for her courage and valour which won the Battle of Verdun, who together they try and figure out the reasons for this time loop and then try to find a way using it to basically stop the war once and for all. Now, for me, for a number of ideas and the main premise that's certainly been done before, this film kind of really does bring in a kind of a fresh and original feel to the proceedings, such that it really does keep you very much engrossed in the story right from that get-go. The action is quite relentless and very fine-tuned. Although we are kind of essentially seeing the same battle again and again, the way that the elements have been put together and pieced together in the movie, they have done so intricately, it really means that it almost feels like you're watching each scene again for that first time, but with that kind of deja vu familiarity that really this kind of film commands. At times, it does kind of feel like we are inside a video game, some kind of first-person shoot-'em-up, right there in the midst of that war itself. Not to mention the way that Cage's life continually resets, almost akin to a continue in such a game. Indeed, saying this, it really does feel very similar to the kind of style that's been executed in 1997 Starship Troopers, if you've ever seen that film. Perhaps not quite as intense as that film, shall we say, but very in tune with its audience nonetheless, and the war in which we then find ourselves. It actually makes for quite the war epic, actually, with a number of kind of analogies highlighted with some of the previous wars that have been fought over the years. There are actually quite some really kind of strategic moments, and it is really interesting to see how we, as a race, might actually respond to an enemy that are alien, more intelligent and working as one, working as a hive against our own might and our own will to survive. It is certainly interesting and quite refreshing that the invasion is played out more akin to a battle and from almost a random enemy, a parasite, if you will, rather than, an all-out kind of flying saucer invasion from the off. And I thought that kind of gave it almost a sense of realism, you know, and a grounding that not many other films in the genre have. This was a raw and kind of unwavering, you know. It had the kind of honesty and the kind of grit to it that I did actually like. You know, although we had, you know, super soldiers, if you like, they were mechanical. Things broke. They didn't work. Things came up in different languages, you know, like using Windows. It had that kind of futuristic edge, but kind of based on a possibility of a technology that wasn't too far removed from our own. It had some quirky and very interesting characters, with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt really providing some excellent moments with some really great on-screen chemistry. Cruise does his best to portray somebody who's utterly clueless and afraid to go to war, you know? Somebody way out of his depth. You know, we of course know better Cruise, you know? But it was nice to see a role where he doesn't go full pelt at the start and kind of having to try and put himself into the shoes of somebody with the kind of that steep learning curve ahead of them. And I think in this movie, he did actually manage to kind of pull it off and really did make us believe that he was, you know, what was I going to say? It's soft, if you like, I don't know. Desk jockey. Me. I'm not good. Emily Blunt is perfect, as well as the hard-edged, kind of war-torn kind of hero that she portrays in this movie. Kind of with an intriguing backstory herself. It really does certainly add an edge to the kind of this premise and parallels with Cage's experiences. Then we have Brendan Gleeson, whose character busts Cage down to private, and Bill Paxton as Master Sergeant Farrell, in charge of J-Squad, where Cage is assigned. Both are excellent at playing the rough yet no-yield armed forces types, you know, that they are in this movie. But Paxton, you know, he just looks like he's having so much fun. You know, he always does play a good sergeant, doesn't he, you know? And the sarcastic banter and that look he just has makes it all the more delectable and literally seems like he is in his element, you know? And that's the thing, why I think this movie ends up being so much more enjoyable. It is not just good science fiction, but you really just have good fun. It is strangely quite darkly comic. You do even find yourself laughing at the many ways that they can think of for Cage to die. That is part of the fun. Now, I know that's bad, you know, to think like that, but it is all part of the humour. It is all part of the humour, you know, and it really does give the film a lighter edge, perhaps, even if it is a macabre one, you know? Like watching a more graphic version of a Roadrunner cartoon. I think that's the best way to describe it, you know? It also boasts some spectacular action set pieces, it really does, and has some great fun with this kind of loop premise. For what amounts to Groundhog Day, the movie presents the kind of similar premise in such a way that it never gets too repetitive or stale at any one point in time. It deliberately leaves parts out we don't see the first time round, so that obviously it can then build on that story in a fairly unique way, which does keep it fresh and interesting throughout and very engaging. It is actually quite amazing how they can make, you know, this same battle that we're seeing all the time so unique each time we actually see it. The aliens themselves look absolutely spot on, I think, for what they're doing. You know, they do form an interesting race of beings. Sort of a collective hive, if you will, like I've kind of insinuated earlier on. It would have been great to have kind of found out more about these creatures, for sure. I think it would, but their effect on the universe around them was probably more than enough for this outing, you know, to get your brains around. So overall, this is a very, very well thought out and engaging science fiction action flick for sure. And it has an absolutely great cast who really do give it their all. The action is nearly non-stop, all told, with some excellent sequences to be had and some very fantastic and immersive special effects. In addition, the film delivers on an intriguing story and quite intricate in the way that it all kind of stacks together, whilst also being quite darkly comic at times, which makes the whole experience shockingly enjoyable. And indeed, even in the midst of everything going on in this movie, they still find time and a way to get Cruise on the back of a motorcycle. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Many thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. We've absolutely loved having you here at SciFirst Movie Talk. Definitely love to have you back, but just most of all, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.